Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We're joined by a guy that I'm a huge fan of, David Pollack, here on the program. David, good morning, man. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So first thing, can you tell us a little bit about the Pollack Family Foundation? I know it's something that's very important to you there in the Georgia area. Just tell us a little bit how it got started and the why behind it.
You know, me and my wife, man, we've been blessed, and so I think when we got drafted by the Bengals, we started a foundation there, and then when we left, we came back to Georgia. We started one here, and just to be able to give back and find needs and serve others. We just gave away a car a couple months ago, which was one of the cooler things we've done. Just write in why you falling on hard times and how we can help. And so we literally donated a car to somebody. We do a banquet of blessings every November where we bus in homeless and those struggling the community around. We had 942 people that we brought in, and we served them a Thanksgiving meal and served them drink, and then got them gloves and scarves and hats and sleeping bags and coats, and they got brand new, stuff, kind of like Christmas morning for them to just kind of serve them and love on them. And so we just find different areas in the community where you can plug in and try to make some bit of a difference.
David, I was so happy to see that you started a YouTube channel because I miss you on TV, man, and I actually now have become a guy that gets most of his content from the YouTube space. So just talk a little bit about getting your college football thoughts and having a platform.
It's weird. I mean, it's very different. I don't know this world very much when it comes to YouTube. I know, how to use it and stuff like that. But just, man, I love college football. And I drive my family crazy. And I drive them nuts. And I'm going to coach my son for the next, 3 years. He's got 3 seasons left in high school. I coach my baby girl on the varsity basketball team. And so I'm not going to travel. I'm not going to go all over the place. But I just love college football. And I watch it every time with an analyst eye, and I'm like, golly, that's a really cool point. Like, I would love to share that. And so I'm going to give this a try. Listen, it's not going to be a lot of fluff. I'm going to talk football. We're going to talk ball. We're going to be very positive. I'm going to point out things that people are doing in the community and just talk football. And if you like football, I think you'll enjoy it.
I do want to talk about the changing landscape in sports media, though. I mean, you see stuff changing at Fox and at ESPN. You've had a very classy approach since you left ESPN. What do you think about this new world that we're in? Because there's all these moving parts, but also the opportunities that weren't there before, like your new channel.
First of all, that was the nicest way I've ever heard anybody tell me that I got fired.
No.
Since you left that world. It is. It's kind of cool because I think everybody has the ability to get their thoughts and their opinions out. And I think that's really cool. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you look like. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. And if something that you want to start that you're passionate about and people can, resonate with your passion and you can start to, build something that's kind of cool. So I think it's neat. I think it's different. I think it's something that will continue because it's, technology's gotten so much better. And then once we entered the Zoom world, with COVID and stuff, you could do so much stuff from the house. And so I think it allows people to, no matter what their occupation is, what their hobbies are, it can be something that they pour into on the side and do something fun and give people more content, which is always a good thing. Let people choose what they want to choose.
All right, so let's talk some ball here. A&M. Give me your thoughts on what you thought of A&M the last few years, and maybe has it changed with the hiring of Coach Elko?
First of all, I'm fully on the wagon. Yes, it's changed. It's changed dramatically. You look at Jimbo Fisher. Obviously, he had a great run at Florida State. Recruiting was not a problem, and talent wasn't a problem. You went to practice, you're like, ooh, who's that guy? Who's that guy? You saw dudes everywhere and you saw talent, and that wasn't the problem. But being able to gel talent and really maximize and develop, that's a different game, and that's a different strategy. And Jimbo Fisher won 12 games the last 2 seasons. Mike Elko won 16 at Duke. And we're not talking about hoop season. We're talking about football season. So, you talk about a guy that's kind of the opposite, that knows how to mesh talent, that knows how to bring people together, knows how to develop, knows how to coach ball. And so I just think it's a massive upgrade. I'm a big Mike Elko fan. I think A&M is a place that just you visit all around the country and you go, man, that place could be really good. That place could be good. A&M doesn't take a back seat to many people, man. I mean, they've got the resources, they've got the facilities, they've got money. We all know Texas Texas has got money, so I think A&M is a place that this year is going to start something special for them. I think I think they can win 10 games. I think they can win 9 games. I think that's possible, and I think they're going to have a lot to say about people in the playoffs too, and who makes the playoff and who doesn't. Like, you start the season with Notre Dame. Notre Dame doesn't have a lot of schedule, or a lot of tough games on the schedule. They got to come to you, just like Missouri has to come to you. LSU has to come to you. Texas at the end of the season. You might have a chance to ruin their playoff hopes at the end of the year. So I think Texas A&M is a stock. If I was buying, I'm buying as much as I can of it because I think it's on the ascend.
David, because of the, we talked about the changing landscape in media, but in college sports in general, right? Like, I think in today's world, people are still trying to figure it out. There's the Lane Kiffin approach. Obviously, Nick Saban was more than very successful, the best coach we've ever seen. Kirby's doing his thing. But, like, it takes a special kind of coach who has the discipline, right? Because you have to have discipline in this world, but also can kind of relate to these players. And that's a much harder task than I think we've ever seen.
It's very difficult. It's a harder task now than ever, because back in my day, and that's what you do when you're older, you say, like, back in the day, you literally, your parents would say, hey, go dig a hole. And you'd be like, all right, sweet. Like, how big? Now it's go dig a hole. It's why? Why would I do that? So I think more than ever, these kids have to understand the why behind what they're doing. And then they got to know you care about them. You got to love on them. You got to get into their world. Like, listen, it's not easy to be an athlete nowadays. There's very few places they can go to get away from the game of football. Every time they go somewhere, there's a camera in their face and there's people wanting autographs. And now you add NIL and money. Bro, I had enough problems at Georgia, okay? Like, I had enough things to get into and areas to find places to get away. You give me a bunch of money, I'd have amped it up times 10. So I think that it's tough to be a college kid. It's tough to relate to these kids, but it definitely takes – you got to know ball. They got to know you care about them, and you got to be ever evolving. Like Nick Saban, you talked about, a couple of years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that dude had to make a switch, had to hire Lane Kiffin and say, I got to go all in on offense. And I think you see as a coach now, to relate to these kids, it's a year in and year out, different proposition. They change, and bringing them together is a skill. It is 100% a skill. It doesn't matter if you can get them there. To get them to trust you and to fight and to work hard for you is a totally different animal.
David, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think about the staff, because I don't know how much you study it, but just for us, we are very excited about this season beyond the Elko approach. It's who Elko brought in: Tommy Moffitt, strength and conditioning coach; Colin Klein, offensive coordinator; Jay Bateman. Like, you go through, like, we feel really good about the staff around Elko. Can you speak a little bit about that? Like, you could have a great head coach, but if you don't have the pieces around him to help get that system and culture in place, it won't happen.
Well, and you got to have coaches that you can trust. And here's the thing. I really don't care who you bring on defense, because Elko is going to be that guy. But I'm very interested to find the Colin Klein aspect of it. Like, is that somebody that comes in, his background, obviously he was a running quarterback. You look at Kansas State every year, physical, tough, ground game, play action off of it, but they knew who they were and what they were. So interested to see how it all meshes together. But your assistant coaches, they've got to bring, okay, so a player takes on the identity of their coach. And a lot of times it's who coaching them every single day. So what kind of energy do you bring? What kind of answers are you giving to the questions that are presented? Because every game you're getting presented questions. And how do you teach your kids to answer those questions as quickly as possible? And so, yeah, listen, there's a lot to prove on the staff. And there's a lot to prove in A&M and in College Station. And can they win? Can they take this to the next level? But I do know this. I think Mike Elko's a guy that has done it at a lower level with less talent and outperform. So that's why I look at him and I say, listen, I know it's a new deal and you're bringing new people with you, but I think he can create a culture, and I know he's going to create defense. Because here's another thing that's cool. You're not guessing about him coming into this league. He had a 4-year stint with the Aggies already. Already knows the culture, right? Like, already knows how to coach great defense. They were elite when he was there on defense. So I think that familiarity helps as well.
Let's talk a little bit about Connor Weigman and Riley Leonard, two quarterbacks that are very good at their craft. We want to see more from Connor, obviously, but he has been, in our opinion, so solid when he's had those starts. And Riley Leonard, I mean, the guy became a star at Duke and unfortunately got injured. And now he's at Notre Dame taking on his former coach. So many subplots in this one. Just kind of break down the quarterbacks for us.
Well, first of all, here's what's interesting about Connor Weigman. It's not being talked about now, but it will be. I think Connor Weigman has a chance to do this. And not just in college football. I think he has a chance to do that up draft boards. Connor Weigman has a chance, I think, at the end of the season to be a guy that you point to and you go, he could be the number one quarterback. Like I think he's that kind of good. Like we know he's got the talent. We know he's highly recruited. But to me, when I watch Connor Weigman, the most impressive thing is his ability to negotiate a pocket and his ability to feel the rush and stay poised. It's elite. It's really, really good. I can't go teach people that. Okay. Like I can have the strongest arm in the world. I can have the most athletic ability in the world. I can't teach you how to feel a pocket and have that savvy and that presence. That's presence. That's something that you're born with. That's something that you innately have. And Connor Weigman has that. So that's why I think A&M's offense can be special. They can protect him. The offensive line, obviously, building skill. I don't think the weapons outside are going to be a problem. Can they have balance and create that on offense? Because I just think, I just gave you a lot of praise for that young man. Like a chance to do this and rise up the draft boards. Riley Leonard is a big, strong sucker. Listen, he struggled staying healthy. He runs it. He runs it hard. Mike Denbrock comes over from LSU, who just won a Heisman Trophy with Jaden Daniels as your offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. So I think the system is going to be extraordinary, really, really good. The weapons at Notre Dame aren't the greatest out wide, and they're kind of unproven. So I think they're going to have to prove who they are. Listen, A&M secondary isn't proven by any stretch either. I can name like 7 transfers that are going to be an impact player in the back end. But this is a great matchup. Two really good quarterbacks with two big names, and I think they have a chance to show off and show out week one. I think we're in week 1, right? Week 0, week 0.5, whatever we're in. I think it's going to be a great showdown.
I want to talk about finding your voice on a team. So Torian York, the linebacker, he was freshman, all freshman last year. He was fantastic. This year, he's a captain as a sophomore. And I just think like finding your voice as a young player and becoming a starter, by the way, as a freshman in today's world, sometimes you're given it. He earned that spot. So can you kind of talk about finding your place on a team when you're one of the young ones, yet your voice matters?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, when you come in, your voice doesn't matter, right? Like you need to shut up when you come in as a freshman and you need to show people what you're about. And when you can do that and you can show people how hard you work, how much you care, and then when you start to ball out, like your voice becomes big. I didn't have a leadership voice until my sophomore year when I started to make plays. You start making plays and you're like, wait a minute, the work ethic meets that. Now you have a voice. And then learning how to control that voice, like learning that when can I push people? How can I push people? Learning that you lead people in different ways. Not everybody you lead the same way. And that's a lesson you learn as a leader. Like, I got to understand where they come from. I got to understand who they are. I got to understand if I can yell at them. I got to understand if I need to be a little bit calmer, if I need to encourage them. And leadership takes on many facets. But what you got to have first and foremost is you got to have a work ethic. You got to be competitive. You got to be tough. You got to do those things. You got to be one of the hardest workers if you want to have a voice in a locker room, because otherwise that goes in one ear, out the other ear.
David, this game in particular, and then I'm going to ask you some other football questions. Notre Dame, A&M, what do you think it comes down to? Because there's been so much talk about the offensive lines. A&M's had struggles there. They bring in some new people. Notre Dame's always recruited well at that position, but they've got 6 starts. So to you, is that the point of the game that you're interested in, or what do you think the game comes down to?
Well, not only does Notre Dame have 6 starts, they lost both their tackles to the NFL, and then their left tackle that was the next guy that was going to be really good, Torres Peck in camp. So I think they're banged up already up front and in experience. So I do think, who can protect their quarterback, who can run the football, get them settled in and established. I think when I look at Riley Leonard, he can do a lot of the running game himself. So that makes it easier. Like, defense is hard to play when a quarterback can run the football. Like he is, Again, he can break tackles. He can go 60, 70 yards. You saw it against Clemson a year ago and make those big plays. But which team can settle their quarterback in? Listen, when you look at Notre Dame and you look at their weapons on the outside, is Mitchell enough at tight end to make plays, to create explosive plays off of it? But I think you nailed it. Both offensive lines, a lot to prove. They need to be physical. They need to assert themselves so then you can play action. Because I think if A&M can run the football this year, I think Connor Weigman can, like I just told you about, he can do some damage in the passing game. He can have poise. He can handle the blitz. He can handle all those different circumstances. So the big boys up front.
All right, so super intrigued by this Miami and Florida game, and one of the reasons is, Miami keeps adding talent. They're kind of like A&M in the fact that we're waiting for them to kind of finally realize their potential. All the storylines with Florida, but you mentioned Cam Ward as one of your dudes of the 2024 season. Talk a little bit about Cam and what he can maybe do in the ACC.
I mean, Cam Ward is really, really good. He might be the top portal guy. Dylan Gabriel obviously is going to be up there. But in the end, you might be like, where did Cam Ward come from? And he came from Washington State and then Incarnate Word. I'm sure everybody knew that. That was his first school, but super athletic. He's not big, but he is a playmaker. He can get the ball out of his hands quick. He'll have plenty of weapons at Miami. He is a really good athlete that can buy time as well. So, listen, it's now or never for Miami. I mean, Cristobal's in year 3. Their talent, position by position, if you want to go with any team in the ACC, it stacks up with it completely. Like, I could argue there's no one that is any better. And the line of scrimmages are both really, really solid. So I think Miami's got to get this thing rolling. Every year we've talked about it and we've been excited. Not only that, they got, running back. They got people from the portal all over the place, and Cristobal's recruited at a high level. It's time for them to step up and show it.
Another dude that you mentioned is Trey Harris, and unfortunately A&M saw him dominate that secondary last year. He had 11 catches.
He put up like 220 bills on y'all.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about him.
Trey Harris, number 9 for Ole Miss. He could have gone to the NFL, but last year you saw Jackson Dart as he continued to get more and more comfortable. He kept throwing it to number 9 and made sensational plays. And Lane Kiffin obviously can coach offense. And Trey Harris he's big, he's tall, he's athletic. I think another year in this system, adding players around him, the line of scrimmage getting better, Dart being more comfortable. Like, Ole Miss's offense, I think, is going to be really, really good, and I think Trey Harris is going to be unstoppable.
David, last thing for you, Clemson, Georgia. Look, I'm not saying this because you're on the air. I've said it many times. I think Georgia was robbed last year. Now, I understand why they didn't make the playoffs. I understand, there wasn't a perfect scenario, but I still think they would have won it all last year. And knowing what I know about Kirby Smart, he's got them, so laser-focused, even with that hard schedule, that Clemson better watch out. Are you seeing it the same way I am?
Yeah, listen, Georgia's got to deal. They've got some injuries. They've got some suspensions, game 1. Travis Etienne's not going to play. Ra Thomas got kicked off the team. So there are some question marks when it comes to Georgia. But, nah, dude, they've got as many losses as national championships in the last 3 seasons. I mean, think about that. They're 42-2. And so, yeah, I think they firmly know who they are. They've gone in the portal selectively to get people to add to their and you go look at practice, add to the mix, and then you go look at practice and you look at young guys like Nick Frazier. Frazier is going to be an animal at the running back. He's the next running back, by the way, at the University of Georgia. Number 3, he is a true freshman. He's unbelievable. You look at the back end, KJ Bolden, another freshman that's going to come in, probably plug and play like Malachi Starks type of deal. So the talent's there. The best coach in college football is there. A lot to prove, obviously, coming into this season. It's a tough matchup for Clemson coming out the gate. Listen, Matt Luke needs some time. And if Matt Luke can get some guys up front and they can get a little bit more physical, but, Clemson's they've been struggling to find the weapons. They've been struggling to find the explosive plays in this offense. And going against Georgia, week 1, that's not a great proposition to start your season.
Well, and it's a big year for Dabo. I mean, obviously he's got the national championships, but he hasn't evolved the way other coaches have. And I kind of like that about him, but I don't know if that's a winning formula for the future.
Well, it makes it harder. Listen, you have the right to do what you want to do. And if I'm Dabo Swinney, I'm like, listen, guys, I've got 2 national championships. I don't need to change who I am. This is the way we're going to do it at Clemson. And also, I think you use that as Dabo is one of the best I've seen as putting chips on his shoulder and getting people to believe and fight and for everything that they get. And if I'm Dabo, man, I'm continuing to preach the same message. Listen, they're telling me to go in the transfer portal because you're not good enough. Think about that. Like, they want me to replace you. All you guys that aren't performing at a high level and aren't doing good enough, like, they're talking about you. So you need to step up. You need to make me look good. But he recruits high school football at a great level. Now, they do it different. They don't offer 350 guys every year. You know, they go after Clemson type guys. But the problem is everybody they're competing against does the same thing, is recruiting at a good level. But now they're also saying, okay, I'm deficient here. You know, I need to plug somebody in here. I go to the transfer portal. Now this makes my team. Okay, now that young guy can come along a little bit better. So Dabo's way is harder. It's different. The only people that are supporting him is the service academies, you know, Army, Navy, and Air Force. Like, those are the only 4 schools in college football that haven't taken a transfer. And so it's different. It's his way. But if I'm him, I'm continuing to bang that drum home to the players. Like, they're telling me to replace you. So y'all need to step up. Y'all need to make sure that we prove them wrong.
David, just so you know, a bunch of the people listening are chiming in. They love the interview. They're subscribing to your YouTube channel. For those listening that haven't heard it, where can they find it?
It's David Pollack on YouTube.
That's it?
Just talking college football. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We don't have like a fancy name or anything like that. But here's the thing. I know we'll be talking about the Aggies. Obviously, we'll be talking about the SEC. But college football as a whole, man, this is exciting. Like, A&M fans should be jacked up, not only for Elko coming in and what that could mean, but college football. Now you start a season, man. You start with, like, I could give you 30 teams in college football that have a chance to make the playoffs. And usually our list is at what, like 8,
right?
You know, like 10. So I think more programs involved, more chances at the Apple, home playoff games coming. I think college football is in an exciting time. And if I'm an Aggie fan, I would be jacked up about my new coach. And I think an upward trajectory that's coming.
David, man, a big fan of your work. Thanks so much for making some time. I hope we can do it again.
Appreciate y'all. Have a good one.